In this animation, we are going to do a basic idle where the character is going to loop over and over on the idle stance. So what we need to do is create the pose that we want to use. And to do that, we're simply going to put ourselves in our auto key mode. We're going to go to our motion tab. With our motion tab, we have the tools ready to start animating our character. And one of the things that we can look at inside the biped has a lot of different options and properties, and right now we're only going to look at just a few that we need in order to do the animation that we're working on, things that will help us out. And one of those things is our anchoring. So we can anchor the feet. So if I click on the anchor foot and our anchor right foot, this is actually going to plant these feet so that they don't move. So now if I go back up, and let's go ahead and go back up and select on our bone. We'll select on the main root of the bone. Beforehand it moved the whole object when we moved. But this time around, the way that we've got it, we're actually going to be planted where our feet are. If we go too high, it's just going to pull them to it. If we go just down low, it gives us a nice little bend in there. Alright, and just to kind of reiterate on that, that's just using your planting. You can also plant or anchor the hands in their positions as well. Alright, so let's look at setting up a good starting pose for our robot. We could leave him nice and stiff, but our robot has a little more personality. So we're going to move him around just a little bit. We'll rotate our feet, broaden his stance a little bit. This way it looks like we're sort of spreading some of that weight out. The other thing we can do is point our knees more in the direction of our feet, open up that stance. The broader you open that stance, the more powerful a character can look. And something simple right here. We're just going to get the arms in a bit of a ready pose. Just going to pull out a little and pull out a little. Bend these little circles up. There we go. And then maybe put a little bit of a tilt, either going down or going up. If we'll lean him in on the front, there we go, then we can leave that just with a straight. Alright, so very simply done. We've got a good solid starting pose for our character. And I want to underestimate the importance of that idle pose. This is what all of your other animations are going to eventually go back to. So when setting it up, make sure that you really take your time with it, because it is truly going to define your character's attitude, his personality, and how other people are going to perceive him inside of, whether it's a rendering just for an animation, or if you're doing it inside of a game. So we want something that's sort of playful but a little bit serious. He looks like he's ready for some action. We'll go ahead and reset our views. Now this is our first frame. Now what I like to do is go ahead and select on all of the bones in the scene and go ahead and make sure that we have a keyframe applied to each one of the bones in the scene. So I'm going to go into my key info rollout, click on the set key, and that makes sure that I've got a keyframe for each one. Now the next thing we can do is sort of determine how many frames do we really want. We're just going to be idling up and down. We may have our character going up a little bit and breathing, going down a little bit lower, and then back to a middle position. So if we've got that, let's say we do, 4 frames up, and then 8 frames down, and then 4 frames back up. So we've got about 16 frames that we're going to work with. So we could start here, and we could say, let's go to somewhere around the 16, 18 frames. And I'm just going to take this pose right here, and what I want to do is copy that same pose more toward the end of this animation. Now to do that one, just like before, we had our copy paste. We could go in there, copy our pose, and then paste our pose at the end. We could also just simply select everything in the scene and do a keyframe, because it is still in the position that we want. So either way, what we can do now is we're going to go in, we're going to select on the root of our object, and I'm just going to pull him up just a little bit. Not too high where he floats, and not too high where he locks up with his knees. But we're looking for just a real subtle little movement. Subtlety in this cannot be overrated. So let's go down to about 12, because we could say we take it a little bit too far just so we can see it. Here we've got that nice subtle motion here. We've got a little bit more of an extreme motion back and forth. So of course it depends on the need of the project and what you're going for. On this one, we are going for something a bit more subtle. And then when we get all the way back to here, we can take our frame, shift, click and drag, and that'll set us up there. I'm just going to right click and drag. And let's say we just play that out a little bit. There we go. So you can see a nice little bend at the knees. And you notice that where we're starting at the root of the character, because that is the... I'm going to slow my time down just a little bit. There we go. That is probably the biggest influencer on the rest of the body. If the hip changes in a position, the rest of the body is going to counterpose to that hip. So your best bet is to start with your hip, get it into the place where you want it, and then go back through, plant feet, move arms, move head and chest, and the like. Alright, so we're looking pretty good with that one. The next thing we want to do is when he's dipping down, we could look at adjusting our torso here just a little bit. What if he just slightly rotates a little bit? Now you notice right now I've got no other keyframes in here, so if I do this from the beginning, he's going to start to rotate a little bit and then quick snap back over. If we go to about a midway point, we could do a halfway, or as he's going he turns and adjusts, or we could keep it at the 4 frames over, 12 frames, get us back over to the other side and have a bit more of a rotating effect. In there. There we go. And we'll move him a little bit more down as he goes. There we go. And we're just blocking in motion just to get it started. Then we can always go back and tweak it. Animations are certainly something you can go back and keep playing with and keep playing with. Alright, so as he's going down, I'm going to have the arms go up just a little. There we go. Something nice and subtle. And then with the head, we could have him gazing forward like that, or we could actually have him countering to his torso and looking to the side just a little bit. And then as the torso goes, we can counter the other way. There we go. We get some nice little movement. It's subtle, not too overdone, and gives us a good starting point if we wanted to keep tweaking on it. But for right now, I actually kind of like where it's at. And I think we can call our idle animation a success. We got our view set back up. There we go. Alright, so definitely take your time, have some fun with your idle animation. You can think of a lot of different ways to work with it, whether it's looking around, whether it's breathing, or doing whatever motion is going to capture the essence of your character. Have fun with it.